Welcome to the Young Film Academy podcast, the essential podcast for young filmmakers looking to... I'm going to start over because I messed it up. Welcome to the Young Film... Don't make me laugh. Welcome to the Young Film Academy podcast, the essential podcast for teenagers looking to make their way into the creative industries. I'm Amelia, Sciandra, joined by co-host Dan Allen. How you doing, Dan?
Hello. 12 out of 10. 12 out of 10.
12 out of 10. Loving it. Loving life. Having a great day.
Absolutely.
Today we're going to hear from somebody about something I find personally very fascinating. Because they're all around us. They're ubiquitous. We know about them and we experience them. They look just like us, but we're not totally conscious of them necessarily all the time. And that is commercials. Commercials, advertisements. We're going to talk to a terrific commercial actor, amongst other kinds of acting. She does everything. Stephanie Linas, who I know from way back in the day. And she's going to tell us about the world of commercial acting, which is, I think, an interesting one. I don't know. Do you know much about commercials, Dan?
Nothing. That's a lie. I know some stuff. I do, but not from the acting side of it. I guess I know as much as I possibly can, knowing lots of people that work in the world of commercials.
Sure,
but it's still a world that I haven't experienced firsthand, and I have lots of burning questions. So I'm excited to get to ask them today.
Well, you know what? Let's quench that burn. And without further ado, let's hear from Stephanie. Welcome, Stephanie.
Hi, Amelia. Hi, guys. I'm so excited to be here. I'm good. How are you all?
Very good.
Yeah,
Very
good. We're doing well. So you're actually podcasting in with us, not from the UK. You are based where in the US?
I am in New York City, which you will probably hear in the background of my recording.
It is known as the city that never sleeps, so there'll be lots of noise there, even though it's the morning. Thanks for being here. You know, we wanted to talk to you about. We know obviously you do lots of kinds of acting, but have done a fair bit of commercial acting, which is, well, I would say it's different. But would you kind of just talk a little bit about what your experience has been in those, you know, perhaps commercial versus film and TV, and then maybe versus theater? What have you kind of seen as a differentiation between those types of acting you take on?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I actually think that I would start out with the similarities, if that's okay. I think that, like,
absolutely,
because commercial acting can seem so foreign. I mean, they give you this text that is not how humans speak. And then they say, like, make it conversational, you know, like, say it like you're talking to a friend. And meanwhile, you're talking about, like, 5G networks and things you don't understand, and it's not how humans talk. So I would say, like, the similarity is the way in which you break down a text. I actually use my skills from Shakespeare study to break down difficult commercial text. You find the lists, you find, you know, the thesis, antithesis, you find your operative words. You know, sometimes you have to diagram the sentence like, you know, you're an elementary school student. So I think that, and then of course it's putting the sort of like emotion behind those operative words, behind those tools that you use. So that for me is a place to start out. I think that, yeah, I mean, the biggest difference is it's just not how humans talk, and they want you to talk how humans talk. And so the advice that I always give to people is, like, just say it to a friend. And that's kind of like the best and worst advice, because it sounds like sort of a thing people say. But sometimes I picture, like, a specific friend that I talk about products with. You know, I'll be like, you know, I hate my, like, hairspray or whatever. Like, what hairspray do you use? And I kind of pretend this conversation for myself to lead myself into the copy, and picturing sort of like a specific person. And this scenario helps me to ease into like saying the text like a person. Another big difference is you're selling a product. You just are. And so much of commercial acting is thinking like an advertiser. What is looking at the script, looking at the storyboard and saying like, what is the before? What is the after? What is the story that the advertiser is telling about this product?
Right.
And how can I use my body, my voice, my frame in the camera to give points of difference between essentially before I started using this product and after. You're using a visual medium to sell a product ultimately, which I imagine, Amelia,
that's so...
I know you do voiceover, but it's similar.
Yeah, definitely. And absolutely that thing of making copy, and by copy we mean what's on the page, the text you're speaking, making that sound not like what it is written to sound like, which it is often written to sound like, now I'm going to sell you a product. But you have to make it sound like you're just chatting to your friends. So there is that sort of really interesting element there. And then I wondered, I don't know how you feel about this, but certainly when I've done lots of taping for auditions for commercials, you often get a script, a quote, and I'm putting script in air quotes for all of our listeners who can't see me, that has no words. And they just want to see your face and your body. So can you talk a little bit about how you approach something like that, where they haven't even given you anything to say and you're trying to figure out what to do?
Yeah, 100%. And I find that those are the types of auditions that take people by surprise the most, because you expect to have to say copy, and then when you don't get any, it's like, what do I do? And so, I would approach it the same as I would approach a text with copy. I would figure out what is the beginning, what is the middle, and what is the end. Because even if it's like, take a thing off a shelf, you still need to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. You need to have a moment before where you're establishing where you are in space. You need to have, your action, and you need to have the result of your action. And then frequently you need to have a little, what we call a button, which is usually sort of like an improvised or kind of just a nice little wrap-up moment there. And so what I do is I start by figuring out, well, what is the beginning, middle, and end of this particular scene, whether it's a long scene or grab something off a shelf. I figure out, honestly, exactly what actions I'm going to be doing. And then I write them out in a list, if it's a lot of them. And then I go from there. Because, for example, I can think of one where it was for, I don't know, a cruise ship or something like that. And it was like, you walk into the lobby with your child and you notice that there's a big aquarium there and everything is so beautiful and you're having a wonderful time. If I don't write out specifically for myself, walk in, look around, have a moment with my child, notice the aquarium. How is my child reacting to the aquarium? Whatever the finishing beat is, this is so great. If I don't write that out specifically, I'm lost in the sauce. And so I get as granular as that.
So it almost becomes like a choreographed dance in that sense. Like you sort of have your moves that you're going to do, and then your talent as an actor is kind of smoothing out the transition between those moves.
Yeah, exactly. It's so much like choreography. And I have a dance background, so maybe that's why it works.
So I was thinking actually I know she has a dance background, so maybe it comes from that kind of sense of thinking about it in a process that leads you to kind of the end product that you want, which is, as you've said so often, right, it's just a look around but it needs to be realistic, right, rather than cheesy, or sometimes it is cheesy. I mean, that's the other thing. I know that oftentimes, and I will raise my hand and say I was this kind of actor. I remember being a young person and saying, I will never do commercials. I just thought I was too good for them because it's not real acting. But actually, now in my career, I've discovered that it actually takes probably the most acting to do a commercial, because you're trying to lift ridiculous copy off of a page, and you're often not saying anything and just having to use your body and your face and your breath to make something realistic, which is, hard.
I wonder with that sort of performance and showing that excitement, how much is too much? Because I mean, there's being excited about a product, and then there's maybe being too excited about a product that is maybe toothpaste. It's like when you hold it up, it's like, oh, it's changed my life. There's like a point where maybe it's point of diminishing returns, right? I guess.
Yeah, definitely. That makes me think of the sort of classic example of having to bite into something and make a yummy face, which is like the hardest thing you could possibly do. What is the balance? And so I would say I take my cues, so to speak, from as much information as I can get from what's in the audition. Read every word of the script. If there's a storyboard, look at that. Quite frequently, I will just do a quick research of the product to see what their previous branding and marketing has looked like. That's not to say that they're not taking a left turn with how they're going on this one, but it does, if it looks pretty consistent, if it's sort of like millennial pink, like cool moms, then the chances are that, you can assume to take your cue off of that. And so I just put together as much information as I can to make an informed decision. And quite honestly, the beauty of self-tapes is that if you really don't know, send 2 takes, send a grounded one and send a wacky one. And the casting director will choose which one they want to pass along.
I don't mind that, actually. So I'm in the process of casting for a film at the moment, and some people do send over 2 takes of 2 very different approaches. And albeit when you're in the thick of casting, the sad reality is that I'm watching possibly 2 to 5 seconds of a bit, and then skimming forward a minute later and watching 2 to 5 seconds of a bit, and then you have got to move to the next one because there's so many sort of tapes to get through. But that's just what happens. And but sometimes you skip forward and you're like, oh, this is something completely different now, and it's actually really exciting, and you do get that window to be seen twice in that way, because people will generally skim through it. Obviously, if you're not right for the look, then you possibly haven't been asked to tape, so that side of it's generally okay and taken care of. So yeah, no, it's really nice. I wonder, how do you generally have multiple ideas floating around in your head of I could be like this or it could be like this, or do you sometimes try and work out? Is it harder sometimes to work out what that alternative performance could be?
It depends on the amount of information that I have. Sometimes commercial auditions come with a novel of information about the tone that they're looking for. The breakdown, the description of the role says a lot about what they're looking for. So if I have a lot of information and they are not asking for multiple takes specifically, and I feel I can make an informed decision, then I will just send 1 take. Usually for commercials, they just tend to want multiples. And so, I have a ton of ideas because, because either, that quite frequently they're asking you to make it funny. And so I like making things funny. And also sometimes, especially if they're asking for multiple takes and they're asking you to quote unquote make it your own, you have the opportunity to make it make a little bit more sense. And so you can say it actually how you would say it, only if they ask for that, by the way. but you can say it how you would say it, and it comes out better sometimes. So
right.
Yeah.
Because in a usual conversation, you're not like, hey, are you really in love with your toothpaste? Like, that's not how anybody actually talks about toothpaste.
I hope toothpaste becomes the fixation of this episode, by the way. Have you ever done toothpaste?
You mentioned, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned the having to eat something and make a yummy face. And I know you did I think it was a taco commercial.
Yeah.
Or salsa. It was something. I know you had to eat something. And I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about the experience of having to take a bite of something. Like, how many takes did you do? What was that like? Did you spit it in a bucket? How did it go where they asked you, eat this taco a bunch of times?
I just would like to add that, like, eating a hard shell taco is, like, the worst possible food to, like, eat gracefully, because you take one bite and it crumbles. Like, what a nightmare. Which is what it was. So for that one, so in anything involving food, they have like food stylists or food designers, and that is somebody that makes sure that, like, every shred of lettuce and tiny piece of tomato and speck of salsa is picture perfect and in the exact spot and the right level. They'll spray it down, to make it look juicy and fresh. Like, you'll notice now, like, food always looks a little wet like shiny and wet in commercials. You'll never be able to unsee it now. And so for that particular commercial, they only made a few tacos. I mean, I think they only made like 4 or something like that. And so
that's risky in taco world.
We had to get it done in 4 takes.
God.
And that's a lot of pressure.
I was going to say that sounds like a lot of added pressure to eat it gracefully and enjoy it and stuff like that. How do you you must be trying to eat it so it doesn't crumble everywhere, but then at the same time also having to think, make sure you look like you're enjoying it, make sure you look like you're enjoying it. How do you sort of juggle those multiple intentions, like, at once? Is there like a skill to it, or how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, I would say it's a skill that applies to commercial work in general that's beyond just eating, because there is like a technical thing that they are showcasing and you have to act. So it's like, whether you're crunching into a taco or you're holding up a bottle of a thing, it has to be just right. And so I think that being really clear about what your story is, like, be really clear about what your acting is. Know what it all comes, I'm going to say the same thing over and over again, but your beginning, middle, and end. Honestly, I sometimes come up with a list of varying reactions. So given the taco example, take a bite and be surprised. Take a bite and nod to a friend, like, yeah, this is good. Take a bite and really, like, close your eyes and have an internal moment. Sometimes doing preparation as granular as, like, writing down the various things you can do helps you just, like, not lose your head when they start throwing all these technical things at you, like, you have to bite into the taco like this and it has to take 1.5 seconds or whatever.
Do you eat tacos in advance to get the skill down? And do you like never want to eat tacos again afterwards, or do you get more excited about tacos having gone through the experience?
In my life, I have eaten a lot of tacos too.
You're like, I've got this one. I don't need to practice.
And although I don't eat a lot of hard shell tacos. I don't know why. You just don't.
No, I would never choose a hard shell taco personally. I would choose a soft shell. So, and speaking of, like, what you were saying there about, how you bite the taco, how you hold the product, which often is quite unnatural. They want it to be logo out. They want the hand to look a certain way on the bottle or whatever. I did a commercial. I don't know if this is language that's Universal UK versus US. I did a commercial here in the UK where they referred to the bottle of the beer that we were advertising as the hero. So there's this language in commercials where they talk about the hero. Can you talk a little bit about that and sort of what that means and how they utilize that?
Yeah, the hero is the focus of the commercial. And so the hero is, I just did a commercial for some gummy vitamins. And so the hero for that, it was the bottle of gummy vitamins. And so that is going to be what is usually in focus, in the lens, like in focus in the frame. It's the thing that the story is about. Now, what gets confusing is they also refer to like hero talent sometimes. And that basically just means like you're the main character, or you're the sort of like physical embodiment of the product.
I see.
And it's so interesting because when I did this commercial, it was for a beer, they were setting up a shot and we did it a number of times because they wanted to kind of rack focus between me and the hero. And the hero had to sit a certain way in a certain place on the table. And just before they called action, the props guy was coming up to spray the bottle because the bottle always, as you said, always has to be wet because that's how you know it's a cold beer. And so it was it felt, I sort of walked away feeling like, gosh, how weird to refer to an inanimate object as the hero of something. It's just language you
especially
have to get used
alcohol.
to especially with alcohol, yeah. It's just this sort of language that you have to get used to that is, and it is like, it is all about that product, right? We had to redo a take because the beer bottle had a fingerprint on it and they didn't want you to see the fingerprints. God forbid someone had picked up the bottle. So it's these kind of really interesting different angles. I mean, and with those kinds of things, with the kind of approach, as an actor, how do you feel the approach is different on a commercial set versus on a fiction set, for a short film or a feature film or a TV show? How do you feel like the approach changes in sort of the mindsets of all the collaborators and maybe you yourself as well?
Yeah, there's two main differences. One is that the person in charge on a commercial set is the client. It is, to just beat our metaphor to death, it's the taco company. And so it's either like the person from the taco company, or it's the taco company has hired an advertising agency to run this campaign. And so it's a person from the ad agency. And so an entire commercial set is, that person is the boss. And in a well-run commercial setting, that person is communicating with the director, who is communicating with you, because those people don't know how to talk to actors, bless them. And the difference on any other set, essentially, is that the director is in charge. And so what's interesting is on a commercial set, the director doesn't always have a ton of creative agency. The director really responds to the client. And that can make sometimes for stressed out directors. One of the best things that one of the best gifts that a director ever gave to me is that we were doing a take of the same scene again and again and again and again and again and again and again. Try it like this, try it like this, try it like this. And you start to wonder, like, am I not nailing this? Like, am I the problem here? Am I horrible? Am I not getting it? Is there something technically that I'm doing wrong? And he came up to me. I think he could see me getting a little frustrated. And he came up to me and he was like, hey, just so you know, the client doesn't really know what they want. They want a broad variety of options.
Yeah.
And so that's why we're doing it so many different ways. You're doing great. They don't know what they want, and they're asking me for a ton of options, and so that's what we're doing here. And that was one of my first ever commercial sets, and I'm so thankful for that experience, because that'll happen, and you won't have a kind director take you aside and tell you that that's what's happening. So the other main difference is that, you're selling a product. At the end of the day, you're selling a product. And there is a lot of money and a lot of people and a lot of stressful things, riding on the success of this commercial. And so things like the fingerprint on the beer bottle, the shiny tomato on the taco, whether or not you say the instead of a, any number of like tiny little things are very important to people. And so, that's a difference. Whereas, on a film set, there's a little more, flexibility, creativity, generative idea making sometimes. We're on a commercial set, like we are here to sell a product and you will do 200 takes of the same thing so that they can get the exact right thing.
You mentioned obviously like directors, obviously they don't maybe have as much control, but this is very prescriptive in terms of like the shots that you're going to get, and sort of how long it's meant to take you to eat a taco or whatever it is. But you mentioned as well getting almost like breakdown of the characters, and I wondered sort of how much of this planning stuff you generally get to see, and whether it varies sort of commercial to commercial. Like, do you always get to see the storyboards, so you see exactly where this bit fits in? And how does it change if you don't get to see them? Does that influence your performance because you can't adapt as much, or you can't be as mindful of where it's going?
That is a great question. And the answer is it's different for everything. Sometimes you get the storyboard for the audition. Sometimes you really only get your tiny little window, and it's up to you to sort of imagine how it fits in. What I would say is that either way, the commercial will change by the time you book the job and get to set. Sometimes it's a completely different thing, and you're like, why did you hire me? I did this thing, and we're doing something else. And sometimes it's tiny adjustment. But I think that this is a good opportunity for you as an actor to advocate for yourself and ask to look at a storyboard once you're on set. Everyone's rushing around. They won't always think to give you one, but there is one there. They have a storyboard. They have a shot list. And I think that we have to advocate for ourselves. If something's not clear, we have to ask. And so I would say, if it's not clear, go on to set. And I've definitely had to do this and, ask for the storyboard. Spend as much time with it as you need. Take a picture of it with your phone so that you can go sit in your makeup chair and look at it. Because sometimes, depending on the amount of information that you have, you could be just the before and somebody else is the after. You don't always get the whole arc. And so it's really important for you to know where you fit in the narrative of the story.
I see. Is it depressing sometimes being the before and not getting to be the happy afterwards? You're like, what are you trying to say? Like, why do I embody the person without this product, Or is it just too exciting that you've actually been cast that it doesn't matter?
I mean, it's always exciting to book a job, and you're like, and then sometimes you're like, oh, I'm meant to look like a tired person. Cool.
Yeah, I watched something on your reel this morning that was you with like a bunch of kids running around looking really exhausted, and I was like, that's a fun one to get cast as, the tired mom.
Yeah, they didn't. That was me in my natural state, by the way. They didn't put any makeup on me.
You still look beautiful.
That's what I look like. I remember showing it to my mom, and she was like, you look haggard.
Classic before. Now, I wanted to ask you, in that commercial, it sounded like to me that it wasn't your voice. And I wondered if you've had experiences of that a number of times where you're doing something and there's a voiceover, or there's a voiceover that's like supposed to be you, but actually they've hired a different actor for the voice. Does that happen frequently?
So that was the only one where originally I had the line and they voiced it over with somebody else. And that didn't surprise me because that was a commercial set that was chaotic. The line kept changing. The story kept changing. Like that was chaotic. And so it made perfect sense that they, wound up dubbing it over with something else. That's the only time that's happened to me, but I have worked in a circumstance where where there is a voiceover happening. Sometimes you're responding to the voiceover. You're like a person who can hear a voiceover. And sometimes the voiceover is like happening while you're doing things. And in that case, if it's dependent on timing, then somebody on set is just reading the voiceover so that you can react to it.
I see. Do you watch commercials as a sort of almost like market research? Like, do you actively? Because I mean, in the UK we've got Sky, so for anyone that like watches live TV, often they have like the pause and fast forward capabilities, and I know certain people will pause a show well in advance of it just so they can skip through all the commercials. But I feel like for you maybe it's useful to not do that, and also to get a sense of what the market is like at the moment. I don't know if there's trends within the world of commercials. I really don't watch too many, I don't think. That's probably a lie. I probably watch loads on YouTube, don't I? But I feel like I don't.
Yeah, you probably watch a ton and you're just not even aware of it.
Yeah, scary.
But to answer your question, yes, I do watch commercials.
Nice.
Both to just look at what people are doing. It's always exciting to see somebody it's exciting to see something that you auditioned for. And yeah, it's important, I think, to see like what's happening. I think there's been a trend for a while now of commercials being funny. And I think because of these dark times we live in, that isn't going anywhere. But yeah, I definitely look at them with like an analytical eye. And really what I look at too, at least here in New York, the vast majority of commercials are still happening via self-tape audition. In LA, I think the commercial scene is like a little bit more in the room. I'm not sure what it is in London, but here we are like still living in self-tape land.
Self-tape land here as well. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's interesting to me to look at a commercial and be like, what was the audition for that? Because somebody in a car commercial being like, and it's just them having a reaction. They had a self-tape and likely a callback and who knows what else before they booked that job. And so I just like sort of backtracking and being like, what was the audition like?
Yeah.
How did they get there? And it's really good to hear you talking about, I think thinking back to my own dumb teenage self of saying I'm never going to be a commercial actor. I think what I didn't get and what I certainly get now and what you're definitely talking about is that even though you are selling a product, you're telling a story still. It's all storytelling. And there is something potentially a bit unnatural about your storytelling, but ultimately it's still storytelling. And I just wondered, like, when you think about your own kind of mindset, going to a commercial set versus going to a set where you're going to do a spot on a TV show or make a film, do you have to change your own personal mindset? Like, how do you manage that kind of thing of like, I am going to do my job, but my job is selling a product that maybe you very likely don't even use or maybe even believe in. How do you kind of manage that? This is a very philosophical question for you.
Gosh, I mean, in a lot of ways it's similar. It is storytelling. A lot of what I love about commercial acting is the opportunity to be wacky. And I just treasure that. And now you have to know when to use it. Like, the situation doesn't always call for it. You have to be sort of socially aware. And if they're asking you to improv, if they're asking you for more, something I love is to just like play, with a director and go to town on being wacky. This is such a tough question. I mean, I think when I'm going to a set, I'm going to a set. There are I know that the days are going to run differently. In a commercial, you're going to spend the whole 10-hour day shooting the same thing over and over again. On a film or TV set, it's going to move much, 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 much quicker than that. You, depending on the size of your role and, the project, you may or may not get to interact with the director. And so sometimes, if you go in and do exactly what you did in your audition, that's what they want. And you do 3 takes of that, bing, bang, boom, you're out. On a commercial set, sometimes there's, again, you're doing it all day. You're doing the same thing all day. There's sometimes a little bit more room for collaboration with directors. Just sort of about like managing your expectations about what each day is going to look like. But yeah, I mean, I'm just happy to be on a set and tell a story and collaborate with people.
Have you ever had to do an ad for something that you weren't so wild about? Or do you make that decision before you even tape?
I make that decision. Yeah. It's my face. It's my face and it's my voice and it's me who has to live with my choices. Just generally in this business, no one will advocate for you as hard as you will advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
Even the most loving and attentive agents and managers won't take as good care of you as you will of yourself. And so, it's on you as the actor or the filmmaker or whatever to sort of set your boundaries on what you, how you want to use your likeness. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I've definitely turned things down before.
Does that get easier? Do you think, like, the further into the industry? I always feel like, it's always must be the new people that feel like they can't turn things down because they're trying to get onto that ladder and stuff. Like, do you have any advice for people that are sort of just at the start of their sort of commercial venture and sort of how to do that,
Yeah, I think that saying yes to things and gathering experience and gathering connections and opportunity and building up your reel and building up your resume, like, by and large, more experience is good. And so go out and get it. That said, don't compromise your moral integrity to do that.
Yeah.
Because, even if something has a usage on the internet, so say they buy, as part of your contract, they say, we're going to use this commercial for a year. The internet is the internet. It will still exist somewhere on the internet after the term is finished. And so, yes, say yes to everything and get experiences and meet people and, start out with the low-paying jobs. It's a great way to build experience. And remember that everything lives forever on the internet, and don't compromise your moral integrity.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing here. There's a lot of in this country versus in the U.S., there's a lot of betting shops. You can just walk into a shop on the street. That's a betting shop, which when I first moved here, I was like, what the heck is going on here, guys? But I know lots of people, fellow actors that I've met in the industry here, and they will put, sometimes it's even on their CV, will not do a spot for a betting shop. That's one of the things they don't want to be, as you said, they don't want their face and their likeness associated with. And I know, for example, I did this beer commercial, but I know a couple of people who were invited to tape for it and didn't because they didn't want to advertise alcohol, which apparently I have no problem doing. But it is true, right? That you have to manage that, and that is a personal decision. There's lots of people who would say, I don't care about advertising a betting shop, I'll do it. So yeah, it is, and I think that the toughest thing about that, which is to your point, is that when you're young and you're just starting out, you want to have the opportunities, you want to have the experiences, and those decisions can change as well. Your boundaries can move as you age, right? Maybe when you were young, you wouldn't do X, Y, or Z, and now you're a bit older and you say, actually, I don't care, or vice versa. So yeah, there is that element of remembering that it lives forever. You will always be able to find. Yeah. And I wanted to ask you on that, because you also do some print modeling, what your experience has been like when you have seen yourself large somewhere.
The wildest thing that ever happened to me is I booked, not ever, I mean, that's whatever. In terms of print modeling, was I booked a print campaign for a health insurance company that was all over New York City. But my face wasn't recognizable in it. It was like from the nose down. It was like my neck and my back, and it was this campaign where they have like a little Band-Aid, that's like blank health insurance, whatever, like fixes this. And so it was pictures of my body on every subway. On the banner ads on every subway, just a massive, like the size of my bedroom poster in Grand Central Station, flashing through Penn Station. I was on a billboard on the side of a New Jersey highway, and that was hilarious. Because my face wasn't recognizable in it. They would have had to pay me a lot more. And in fact, I got paid very little for this campaign. It was earlier in my career. But whatever, doesn't negatively impact me anyway, except for the fact that it was literally everywhere. And I was like, I made $400 for this.
I was going to ask if you ever sort of like conveniently stood next to it. And if anyone ever sort of was like, hang on a second, like, does that ever happen? Anyone see any similarities here? And then everyone's like, is that your sister? And it's like, no, God damn it.
That's me.
That's me. But have you ever been next to a poster and sort of been recognised? Obviously, probably not in this instance because you said you weren't recognisable in it.
Not a poster. No, although I've had... no, I don't think so. Okay. Not that famous. I don't think so.
Well, and also there's 8 million people in New York City, so.
Yeah, and also like everybody in New York City is like, I could care less who you are. Like Paul Rudd could walk down the street and everybody's like, ugh, get out of the way, Paul Rudd. Like no one cares.
Is it different?
Oh, go ahead, Dan.
I was just going to say, is it different, like, seeing yourself on TV? Is that, like, a really different experience? Or is that also sort of quite exciting when you sort of see a commercial pop up?
It's always exciting.
Yeah. Do you know when it's going to happen as well?
You don't. So that's something that was a surprise to me when I started out in this industry, is that you don't know when it's going to air. You do know how long it will once it airs, and they'll never tell you. They're never going to be like, they'll never tell you. Like the majority of spots that I've done, I either like maybe 6 weeks after the shoot have started just researching, like Googling around for it, looking on YouTube, looking on social media. Every now and then, it's a good idea, not every now and then, but just generally as a practice, it's a good idea to retain the contact information of the production company and the director for several reasons. One, it's nice to send a thank you note. Two, these production companies and directors, they don't just do commercials. We all do everything. And so the guy directing your commercial today is directing a feature film in 2 months, so it's just good to keep in touch with people. And three, because if you really can't find your commercial, you can send them a polite request. Hey, do you have this? Are you able to share it with me? Because no one will just hand it to you when it's out. You have to really dig for it.
I wondered as well what sort of that. Obviously, we talked about that, the prep and stuff like that. When it comes to actually the shoot day, how long is a shoot day for a commercial for you, generally speaking? And like, do you have to get there significantly early for makeup and stuff? And like, does it wrap really late? Or because I've always heard that the pace of filming in terms of how many different shots you're getting is obviously much more relaxed than on, say, like a feature film or a TV show. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the day is any less long. And I appreciate you're probably doing things over and over again. So if anything, there's possibly more acting to do, albeit it's like little bits of acting as you repeat the same action.
It's on average a 10-hour day. Sort of industry standard is a 10-hour day, and then they'll pay you overtime for more than 10 hours, which definitely happens a lot. I mean, I'd say you work a 12-hour day more often than you work a 10-hour day. But, overtime's nice. So
because they're looking at the watch, being like, "Ooh,
here we go. We're going into grace. Let's do it.
Take a couple of extra shots.
Let's go. How many takes? Yeah. So you get there, and usually it's a pretty early call, just given the fact that it's such a long day. Hopefully they take you there, but sometimes you have to self-report, and that is what it is. There's usually some sort of breakfast. You get into hair and makeup. They bring you to set where you ask to see the storyboard so you can know what you're doing. It's also okay to ask for like a schedule for the day. Ask an AD, ask a PA. What does today look like? Because if you're the talent, you want to just sort of prepare yourself for like, we're going to be doing this shot before lunch, this shot after lunch. Ask for the information.
Yeah.
And then they bring you on to set, and you are shooting all day. And in terms of pace, hypothetically, it should be a leisurely pace. And usually, like, what happens is before lunch, it's a leisurely pace. And then after lunch, they realize, oh, God.
We're way behind.
We're way behind. There's usually an AD being like, come on, let's go, guys.
Come on, Stephanie, smile louder and quicker.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, you'll break for lunch, and then you'll go back for the rest of the day. And so the pace really can vary, and the mood really can vary. And so one of the biggest skills that I learned that I think that you can learn and practice when you're doing smaller jobs as you're first starting out is how to manage your own energy. Because it's a long day, and you have to be on, for a lot of it. And so I am a gregarious person, but I have found if I come in hot at 8 o'clock in the morning and I'm chit-chatting with everybody in the world, then, by the time lunch rolls around, I'm dead. I'm exhausted. And so I think a skill to learn is it's people skills, right? It's like it's riding the wave of the energy that's happening, and not taking it personally when people are stressed out, and moderating at the same time your own energy output.
Yeah, so energy
really
conservation.
Conservation, and also, we talked about this before, I feel like, Dan, on the pod, of like the vibe of a set. Everybody contributes to that vibe, and I think especially when you're talent, at least in my experience, you're often coming into an already curated vibe. Like, those people, depending on the kind of project, they might have been working together for ages before you ever got there. And so you will have to like really kind of assess the vibe and figure out how you slot in versus coming in with a totally different energy, and then everyone's like, what the heck is this? And then on a commercial where you're not having that, it is about being able to kind of read a vibe very quickly, right? And like being able to positively influence that vibe as much as possible without hijacking it or going in, as you said, going in too hot and just running yourself ragged just by trying to be kind or, happy to everyone.
I wondered what your sort of favorite thing about commercial shooting is. Like, what's the thing that you enjoy the most, or just the loveliest bit about the process? You're welcome to throw in a least favorite thing as well if you like, but I'm sort of more interested in sort of what is the most exciting.
I think that my favorite thing, I have two favorites.
Oh, yeah.
My true favorite is that, like, you get the opportunity, not always, but you get the opportunity to, like, be funny and be wacky and improv and do crazy things sometimes. And it's just fun. I'm a ham. I like making people laugh. I make myself laugh. I definitely appreciate the fact that I get to do a different kind of acting in the commercial world than I do in the film and television world. And so I just value that time. And then the other thing that I like is that I really enjoy the challenge of finding where I can be creative within a very technical structure. I just think
and that I bet is connected to your background as a ballerina, which is very constrained. And then you still need to be technically, you need to be creatively beautiful while having this, significant technique. I wondered just on that, like, what's the craziest thing you've ever had to or gotten to do? Like, what's the wackiest thing that you did that ended up being a final take that got into an ad?
Eat a taco.
Yeah, right. Eat a hard shell tacos. That was the hardest thing I've ever done. Oh my goodness. Hang on, I have to sort of flip through my little Rolodex here. I did a series of spots where they just let us improv a lot. And this was for Cake Bites. And the other actor and I just had great chemistry. He was such a nice guy. We really played off of each other. And the director was very much letting us take control of the button at the end of a scene. And so we just tried different things, and we played with each other, and we cracked each other up. So I can't say that it was anything like hugely wacky, but I got paid to improv with another great actor, and some of our improvs made it into the final cuts, especially those buttons of that series of spots, and that was fun and gratifying.
Yeah, I've seen those. They're very funny. I just wanted to mention, because I think it's an but funny element to this world of commercial acting, which is that I noticed on your CV, one of your special skills is can move eyebrows independently, which is like what kind of this industry is so crazy that's the thing you have to put on your resume, on your CV. But I just wondered if that's ever gotten you called to something. Have you ever had to do a tape where you're just moving your eyebrows, or they want you to do the one I can't even, you're watching me, I can't even do it. Has that ever come up? I'm just curious.
So I don't think that it's been the reason why I have gotten an audition, but I think it's been the reason why I've booked a job.
Great.
I've been told, because you never know why you book a job. You never know if it's like one of the jokes that you made, or a thing that you did, or the way that you look, or like, you never know. And so I remember going to a set and having the director be like, "Can you do that eyebrow thing that you did in your audition? Because we loved that." Oh, sure.
I'm just thinking of there's a Cadbury's advert that was in the UK where these two kids did this whole eyebrow dance thing, and it was really good. If you haven't seen it, you should look it up. Although that, I believe, was CGI. They actually sort of manipulated their eyebrows afterwards. I
was going to say, I don't think they were really doing those eyebrow moves. I think
they were these kids,
computer generated. Yeah,
I could have done
it. They should have called Stephanie. She would have been able to do it.
Damn it.
This brings us, and we've sort of answered this question in a couple of ways already, but I wondered if you could answer it for us a bit more in depth, which is one of our two final questions we always ask our guests, which is, what were you doing when you were a teenager that you feel has kind of fed into what you do now, or is connected in some way to what you do now? What was teenage Stephanie up to?
Teenage Stephanie was dancing, as we have mentioned, and doing all the plays in high school. So we had a musical in the fall and a straight play, usually Shakespeare, in the spring. And I was doing all of those things. I also was singing in a choir. I participated in tech theater, helping build the sets. It's the only reason why I know how to use any tools. And something that I did in high school that my theater program in high school really encouraged was I started designing makeup for our high school shows. And so I was given a lot of creative control and responsibility and a little bit of budget to design makeup. So yeah, I was doing a lot of things, which I feel grateful for, the experience.
And much of that obviously has fed into what you do now. And I wondered, actually, just hearing you say that about makeup, thinking, and that means that you're good at doing your own makeup, which definitely helps for commercial casting. I mean, I think more so in the U.S. necessarily than the U.K., but there is this notion that you need to be quite put together for commercials. I know there's a big thing in the U.S. with like commercial headshots, and that you need to kind of have a full blowout and your face really done up. So there is this kind of curated image that a commercial actor sort of has. Do you think that that's still true, or is that kind of going away?
That's so interesting to hear that, because I feel like in the U.S. it's more about real people. And so, yes, you do have to like put on makeup to look professional, but it is not. I mean, I would say that they're looking for real people. They want you to look like pretty natural. And if you're doing a full beat, so to speak, you're misreading the room, unless they're looking for a model. In which case they would say model types. But frequently, like the types of castings that I get, and talk about staying humble, it's like pretty, but not a model. Like aspirational, but not intimidating. And like, fit, but not too fit.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like Botox, but you still need to be able to move the face.
Right. Like damage to my ego aside, I think it says a lot about like they're looking for real people. And so honestly, I know that this is a podcast, so people can't see, but this is the amount of makeup essentially that I would wear for a commercial audition, plus a little lipstick, so that my face isn't washed out. Yeah.
Well, we'll share your face when we share the episode, so they'll get to see how incredibly beautiful you are, and that you don't need makeup to help you get there. So terrific. And then just thinking about that teenage Stephanie back in the day, what advice would you give her if you could go back and talk to her?
Yeah, I would say to begin developing your own sense of success and validation. Because I think when I was a teenager, and quite honestly through my university days, I derived validation from getting cast in things, getting a solo in the musical, like doing a short film project in class and getting an A on it. And once you're out of school and once you're out of programs and you're out there in the world, it was really hard for me to find validation and a measure of self-success in just when you're out there without all those things given to you. And so I think that's like the biggest thing that I wish that I had started working on is like, what are my terms of success, and how can I validate like myself and my own work and my own journey, so that I'm not relying on external factors for my self-worth.
And I didn't help you on that journey because I cast you in the lead of a play in college. So you were getting validation from me.
Amelia.
I directed Taming of the Shrew, and Stephanie played Catherine. So she was the shrew to be tamed, in fact.
I was the shrew.
That's really beautiful. I love that.
Things.
And I, thank you. And I think that idea of manifesting it yourself is really important and quite difficult. So, thank you for that. I think that's definitely food for thought, even for myself now at this age I am.
Yeah, same. It's still a journey.
It's always a journey. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. It was really lovely to get a chance to interview you and chat to you and hear all about the world of commercial acting. And, we'll see you on the YouTube ads we push skip on soon.
Don't skip. If you see me, don't skip.
We won't. I'm gonna click on it and I'm gonna buy something, and then people are gonna be like, "Holy moly, this lady is turning, clicks into sales." So.
Wow. Yeah. Give her more money.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. This has been really great.
Thanks, you guys. I'm so honored to have been on here, and I love the work that you're doing. And thank you so much.
what I really loved about what Stephanie said and did is that, I kept sort of pitching her these questions about differentiating. What's the difference? Between, commercial acting and commercial sets and everything else. And she was really even eye-opening a little bit to me, myself, of recognizing that actually it's not that different, that really acting is acting, and that regardless of whether you're going to walk onto a set for a commercial or walk onto a set for a film or walk onto a set for a TV spot or whatever, you will do a lot of the same work in your prep.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I want to say there's so much overlap, but to be honest, it's just so much the same more than that there's overlap in the even taking 1.5 seconds to eat a taco as we kept going back to tacos reminded me of hitting marks in film, and you got to walk in but you've got to pick up the telephone a little bit quicker because it's necessary for the pace of the scene and stuff. All that stuff still happens in a feature film or a TV show as well. It's maybe less like that, but it still happens with great regularity. And also
it's
a lot of
that balance of technicality and creativity, right? That maybe the technicality is more common, as you've just said, in commercials, but in film still, especially for things like if they're going to rack focus or if they're going to, pan, you have to hit the marks. You've got to do the thing at the right time. And so those technical things, which can be the most difficult to kind of learn how to do as an actor. It's not really about your ability to show emotion or to play an action. It's actually about how easily do you, rub your belly and pat your head at the same time, say the line, pick up the phone, answer the phone, all of that kind of stuff that really becomes, and I liked how she kind of laid it out. It almost is like we said, a choreographed dance of go, one move to the next move to the next move to the next move. Which I think if you have a kind of formulaic mind can be super helpful in attacking those technical necessities.
I literally had that image in my head, by the way, of patting your head and rubbing your belly as she was talking about, eating the taco well and making sure you look really happy about it and trying not to make a mess.
Crumble in your hands.
It really does feel like that, which it scared me a little bit because I'm rubbish at patting myself on the head and rubbing my belly. It always turns into just a pure lateral up and down motion for the belly rub, which I feel like is cheating and is not really doing what the task is.
It's funny. I'm teaching right now some very high-level actors, some actors who are on a master's program. But one of the things that we keep talking about is how, being a stage actor, and I think it's being an actor of any kind, is being able to simultaneously spin lots of plates, because you are having to, it is a lot. You are having to walk the right way, talk the right way, look the right way, and I think there's different challenges in film, in screen acting versus television, versus theater acting, but it is still, no matter what, it's a lot of spinning plates. It's and then on top of it, there's the psychological element of you are an actor and keep yourself safe as a human. Don't run into the furniture, don't walk off the stage when you're an actor or whatever, a theater actor. So I think it is knowing that.
Does that happen?
I mean, I think it has happened before, yes, that people have fallen off the stage because they don't have, I always say, when I teach, I say it's 95%, 5%. When you're acting, 95% should be the character, but 5% should be the actor because the actor is the one that makes sure you don't fall off the set or look straight down the barrel of the lens or, do the things that you as a person shouldn't do or you do the things as a person you should do to keep yourself alive and healthy.
Yes. 100%. And you need to be healthy so you can do more acting afterwards. Otherwise, it's going to be a very short-lived career.
Yes.
I think.
If you walk off the stage and break your leg and then the leg, you can't be that's going to take you out of commission for a while.
Absolutely. We have a question, Amelia. This question is from Samira, who is 19. Samira wonders, she says, do I need a separate agent for commercials versus film and TV? I think that's a you question.
It's a great question, and the answer depends on where you're from. So I presume Samira is writing to us from the UK, in which case the answer is typically no. Here, an agent will typically be able to do everything for you from film to TV to ads to theater. Some agents will do voice work too. Other agents won't. So a lot of actors will have an acting agent and a voice agent if they get into that kind of work. In the US, however, you would have a different agent for commercial acting versus other acting. And you might even have a different agent, or you very likely would have a different agent for commercial acting, print modeling, if you do that as well, and film, TV, theater. And some people even might have a theater agent and then a film and TV agent. So it's quite segmented, or it's more segmented in the US than it is here. But in the UK, you wouldn't necessarily need to go out and get a commercial agent that's separate. Now, you could, they exist, if you're really just looking to do commercials and really wanted to kind of throw yourself into commercial acting, you could look for a commercial agent to sign with, for sure. So the answer is all of the above.
There you go, Samira. All of the above. So yes, yes, and yes, basically. Yes. Well, thank you so much for joining us, guys. Do send your questions to podcast@youngfilmacademy.co.uk, and we hope to answer them on a relevant episode. So thank you very much.
Thank you. See you next time.
See ya. Peace.